Hello, and welcome to today's Human Capital Matters series, an interactive business conversation focusing on developing and communicating the business continuity plan. I'd like to thank you for joining us. My name is Bo Birch, and I will be your host and facilitator today. Feel free to send your questions and comments to our speaker through the chat portal. Our firm, Human Capital Solutions, has a dedicated email, so you may also forward your questions and comments to working remotely at humancs.com. And that email has been prior to today's conversation and will be available to send questions in after today's event. We are so thankful and honored to have our special guest speaker, Mr. Ken Zrowka, with us today. Welcome, Ken.
Well, Bo, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
It's great to have you, and I understand you've got a lot going on in your life these days.
Sure do. Just started a great new role with the Mitchell Gold and Bob Williams team based in Taylorsville, and just started this week, as a matter of fact. Great company, a great luxury brand with furniture and home furnishings, and just excited to really be a part of the team.
That is exciting. A little bit about Ken's background. He's most recently served as the head of human resources for Primo Water Corporation, leading the redesign of Primo's HR model and development of the company's next generation culture roadmap. Prior to serving at Primo, Ken led the HR team for Strata Solar based in Chapel Hill and spent 18 years at Lowe's Improvement, leading substantial organic growth, where we also saw that they had historic record sales when that came out 2 days ago.
Yes.
Ken's focused in change management, talent, HR business model evolutions, and executive development initiatives. Ken's expertise spans operations, of course, and HR leadership roles in both domestic and international public and private companies. And Ken has already unveiled that he has a new role he's excited about with Mitchell Gold and Bob Williams. So again, welcome, Ken. We're thrilled to have you.
Thrilled to be here. Thanks again.
We'll get right into the first question as we go. I think most of us know how this works. We should have this posted tomorrow on YouTube. If for the folks who did not get a chance to join us live today. Ken, we are certainly in a dramatic change these days and you've experienced and led quite a bit of transformational change over the past 20 years. What have you learned are the keys to successful business continuity and employee engagement during times as these, Ken?
Bo, I love the question. You know, I think over the years, the most essential thing I've learned about keeping employees engaged during any change program and keeping a smooth business going is having a very intentional, thoughtful, and deliberate plan. You know, I think I've experienced both scenarios where there's been a lot of execution and thought into a plan and some where there haven't. And certainly the leaders in the companies that have a very well-defined what-if plan that you know I would refer to it as, to capture all the different scenarios, you know, and especially in a time like today with COVID, having contingency plans for remote work, for just working differently certainly is the key. And the best-in-class companies will have a great plan that captures all of those possible events.
You know, we had a guest speaker on several weeks ago, and she brought up the angle of the grieving process. There was so much change going on. People went into shock, anger, resentment, and so acceptance really takes people a while when we're going through significant change, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh, it sure does, you know, and I think sometimes it's easy to underestimate how long that grieving process can be. I think of a scenario years ago with a really large company, with a project that would have affected thousands of employees, and some of the key constituents in supply chain, as an example, or operations weren't consulted. So not only are scenarios like that disruptive to the company, but they extend that grieving process that you're talking about. Employees feel a little bit of resistance because of not being involved and informed and kind of feeling like they don't know where things are headed. But then it tends to prolong itself for sure after the change happens. It's emotional and it affects us deeply. And we've got to keep in mind just how long that can last.
Yes. Excellent point, Ken. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure.
Ken, how would you describe your approach to change management and business continuity from number one, the business lens, and number two, from the people lens?
Sure. My gosh, wonderful question. So when I think of change in communication, Bo, I think about there are multiple constituents. There's the company as a whole. There's the shareholders, the stakeholders, the employees, our peers in the workforce, and all of those constituents and groups and stakeholders have a role in change. The key to keeping everybody engaged is keeping everybody informed. I often will encourage leaders to really look at the impact of the change, even if it seems like it's not going to be substantial. Change is emotional and it affects everybody. So having a good, clear path and direction and guidance for employees is certainly the most critical piece to reducing any anxiety tied to it.
I would agree. Oftentimes we as leaders are sometimes implementing our own changes, maybe based on something external, globalization. We remember 20 years ago where we became a global, had the global competition, and we had to implement a lot of change to be leaner and faster. And some employees were embracing and some weren't so excited. The external change here of a pandemic is unlike anything any of us has ever seen, right?
Oh my gosh, you're not kidding. It's something that I think caught most companies by surprise, quite honestly, which is why it's so important to have that continuity plan. And what I've seen just in the past months as well is employees can get caught up in not knowing where things are headed, right? So years ago, I used this analogy of a mall map that I think is so purposeful and valuable in communication. I walked into a mall, I saw this big red dot said, "You are here." And I immediately thought about companies. If the company was that mall map and the employee was the red dot, malls do that to draw immediate context and placement and help the customer vision where they're headed if there's a particular destination. Say you want to go to Bloomingdale's, it's to the left, up the right, and to the left again. And you can mentally picture and ground yourself along the way with that path. So imagine if the company was the map and the employee was the dot, and we shared with employees, we're headed to Bloomingdale's. Here's what it's going to look like, and here's what it's going to feel like along the way. Sometimes it's going to feel great. Other times it might be a little confusing, might even be a little bumpy. But the employee always knows along the way why things are happening and that there is a trajectory and a defined outcome. And if we can do a good job presenting that to employees and helping them see that end game, that again is a big anxiety reducer and an engagement enhancer that just keeps the business moving as smoothly as it can.
Well put. The being transparent, and that's quite a visual image that you described for us, and we followed you well on that. Thank you for giving us that image. Change can, especially when it's substantial or even transformational as this change, can have a dramatic impact on the well-being of the emotions of all of us, particularly the employees. What have you learned, Ken, is the key to managing the employees' needs, their anxieties, and the serious questions during times like these?
My gosh, I love the question. I immediately think of my favorite question with employee experience. And that question is, what's it like to be you? And I ask every employee that. I've been doing it for the past several days here with the Mitchell Gold team. Sometimes we underestimate the weight that employees are carrying. And every employee brings into the job every day a story. And they're dealing with things outside in the home, especially, current week, school starting for a lot of a lot of parents, and that can be stressing and taxing on not just an employee, but a company as well. I'm a big fan of encouraging leaders to be direct with employees and say, tell me what it feels like to be you. And that's you with the customer, with the company, with your peers. What does it feel like to be you with me? And if you ask that question and just sit back and listen, it's amazing how much information we can learn about an employee's story. And if we understand that context and what that employee's story is, we'll know pretty quickly what information is valuable and important to share and when to share it with the employee. It's my favorite question that I think connects a leader with an employee quicker and better than anything else you can ask.
Thank you, Ken. Ken, leaders oftentimes, and understandably so, can get quite caught up in making sure the business runs smoothly and
Yeah.
customers are well taken care of. When disruptive times occur, such as what we're experiencing now, it can be hard to balance all these complex needs that everyone has, especially the employees with the uh, schools aren't opening, working from home. What have you learned, Ken, over the years, and the best way to ensure employees are feeling heard and cared for, that the culture and the values of the organization are nourished?
Sure. My gosh, nourishment really, it's the it feeds the soul and the workforce, right? So, Bo, I think what comes to mind for me with this is you've got to be purposeful. You have to be intentional. You have to control the narrative with good, accurate information to share with employees. I've often said, in the absence of information and context, employees will create a story in their mind, and we don't want employees creating a story that doesn't match reality. So we do a really good job on the front end. Commit to talking openly, honestly, compassionately, empathetically. Our humanity as leaders sometimes makes us want to not share bad news with employees. But employees feel it, they see it, they sense it in the environment. And the more we can be direct and honest, and be transparent more than anything with employees, that's the most critical element to keeping engagement in place. Leaders sometimes are reluctant to say the words, I don't know. I think in a time like this, it's okay to say, I don't know. We're confronted with moments and experiences we never anticipated. And employees are going to give leaders a lot of slack for saying that, but they're also going to want to hear, if you don't know, what can you do to get information that's going to help me feel better? And we can't underestimate the power of that, especially today.
Ken, you just jiggled a memory when I was a lad doing some training, change management, changing culture. We printed a lot of supervisors a card to put in their pocket, and the card said, I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, yes, love
And,
that.
traditionally, supervisors aren't trained to say that. We're supposed to have all the answers, aren't we?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And what's so interesting is that never goes away, whether it's a frontline employee or a C-suite. Even executives in a C-suite oftentimes say, I don't know. None of us have all the answers, and that's okay. And I think it's important for companies to realize no one's expected to have all the answers. And sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves as leaders to feel like we need to. We want to be authentic and genuine. If we don't know, just say, I'm not sure, but here's what I'm going to do to find out for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that a lot. Ken, these uncertain times can certainly make it difficult for companies to keep a strong cadence of productivity, performance intact. I'm hearing some data coming in now that, working remotely, production was stabilized and even got a little better. Now there's some data coming in that we're losing some of that cadence. What is the key to effective employee engagement, Ken? The culture preservation, as you've talked about, and helping employees not get distracted by all the noise of this situation going on?
Wow. Well, what a great question. So, uh, Bo, I think the key is purpose, and the key is connection, and discipline, quite honestly, for a leader and an employee. It's a very different world for us right now. So leaders have to be committed to a routine structure and cadence of communication and connection with the employees. Working remotely can be challenging, and I've often said we have to manage performance and outcomes, and let that be the compass we use to guide the relationship with an employee. We can't see employees every day today, but we can see performance and contributions. So uh, the important part of keeping an employee engaged in that experience for me has always been purpose and values, and you ask an employee, what do you do? Based on the response that he or she gives you, you'll know pretty quickly if they feel like they're part of a company where they're just executing a task, or if they're a part of something larger, right? I think of in the current company, our sewers. I talked to a brand new employee that said, I said, what do you love most about your job? She said, I'm making somebody's life better out there, and I love knowing I'm doing that. That's an employee that's so connected to a purpose that's bigger than the job she does. And if we can create that for employees, and leaders are constantly reminding employees of the impact they're having, that's how you create connection, and that connection drives motivation to perform.
Yes, I echo that. You and I were talking before we put this together, a couple of authors that are doing a great work, Simon Sinek and
Yeah.
Purpose, and really digging into and examining companies like Apple, Tesla, and finding out, why are people so excited to work for these companies? Because they've done a great job of connecting purpose.
Yeah. It's, I think we underestimate it. I'll often ask employees, why do you stay, right? There's so many choices out there. What keeps you here? And listen to what they say and hang on to that, because I've seen employees that have been here 20, 30 years, and the story is consistent. I'm making a difference for somebody else. I love the way I feel when I'm here. And I love the experience of being here. So when you can capture that and preserve it, my gosh, magic happens.
Yes, we all want to matter, don't we?
We do. Every employee matters.
Yeah. And so I think it's a good time now to look to our chat portal, Ken,
Sure.
with your help to see some questions that have come in from the audience, and I'll allow you to take a look and to grab a question that is coming through the chat portal.
Sure.
Hmm?
Bo, it looks like one of the questions that is here initially is when you think back over the years with regard to change, uh, what would you do differently next time? Wow, awesome question. Uh, every situation is different. Every circumstance is different. There are times where I felt really good about change and initiative and business continuity. There were times where I looked back and said, my gosh, we missed some opportunities. I think the biggest learning that I would share and what I would do differently is spend more time with the frontline employee who is impacted the most by every change initiative. I mentioned before the constituents in the workforce. Uh, Change communication and execution has to be tackled from the C-suite to the front lines. The front lines often were consulted, but plans were built based on their feedback. And I think the missed opportunities were going back and asking them again, how does this feel for you? Does this seem realistic? Does this feel like it's manageable for you? And based on the feedback that we would have gotten if we had done that multiple times, we could have done a better job executing. So you have to iterate over and over and over with multiple levels before you deploy it. And that's what's going to get you the best result.
Mm-hmm. Very, very excellent. I like that a lot, Ken. Let's see, there's another one coming in. Go ahead.
Yeah, it looks like, do you feel that over communicating is an issue? Um, I really don't, especially in a time like this. You have to be clear, you have to be transparent, but you have to keep in mind that every day employees come to work with different thoughts, different questions. And I think it's an opportunity for a leader to just check in and say, hey, how are you doing today? Do you have any questions? You feeling good about where we are, where we're headed? It can be that light. It doesn't have to be a structured conversation. And communication can happen in those increments just to remind the employee, we're here for you, we care about you, and we recognize that you may have uncertainty every day. We want to make sure we address it. So I would say no, but keep it on a level that makes sense for the employee and the group you're talking to.
Can you bring to mind some conversations we have amongst our group at our firm is that there's physics involved and trajectory involved when we communicate. If you're aiming for the target when you communicate, then you may go a little low. So sometimes we do have to a bit over communicate just to hit the target, because to adequately communicate, sometimes we're not effectively communicating. What do you think of that?
Oh my gosh, couldn't say it better. In fact, you sparked a thought that I often think about, which is I tend to look at the goal as not the end game, but the minimum standard. So, we have to hit a threshold of performance, in this case, communication, but where else can we go? I couldn't agree more. I think we feel in our minds that we told a good story. What matters more is, do our employees feel we told a good story? Yeah, I could not agree with you more.
Okay, so there's another one said, did you hear the need for the new way of communicating?
Absolutely. Times are different. 20 years ago, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have email. Everything was pen and paper and cell phones with cords and a wall. And today we have instant communication and contact with employees. So I've used applications over the years that are text-based that you can blast out to certain job groups or an entire company, just to keep them updated, whether there's information they need, questions they have. A lot of companies today have an intranet and a central communications repository. And I've set up sites and told employees, anything related to this change, here are ways you can get in touch. You can go to the intranet, to this link and site, and submit your question and we'll get back to you. Here's a number you can call directly if it's urgent and you want to talk to somebody in person. But you're also going to get daily or weekly, depending on the circumstances, text messages that give you constant updates. So it's a mobile world today, but it's more of a connected world than we've ever had. So companies have to really look at that and figure out, beyond email, beyond traditional face-to-face communication, what technology can they leverage to be really good at this? There are a ton of solutions out there, many of which are low cost.
Yes, maybe the new normal now is, you have colleagues down the hall, or maybe the colleagues from home, and we're
Yeah.
just doing a lot more Zoom, because we do have to say Zoom is a lot more effective than the traditional email, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm becoming a Zoom and Microsoft Teams guru these days. It's a way of the world right now, and that's okay. And it will become the new normal, just like email. And it's just a different way of working. But that connection is so critical, no matter how it comes. But it looks like we have another question. What is one takeaway for the audience? My gosh, I love this. I, I started with the question before, what's it like to be you? My big takeaway would be, know the answer to that question for every employee that you have. Know the answer to that question for everybody that you work with. And if you know the answer to that question, most of the answers around communication, engagement, continuity are going to become pretty clear. The other thing is purpose, right? Uh, Employees want to feel like they're not doing a job. They're a part of a purpose. So be really intentional, really thoughtful, really purposeful about helping employees understand, when you perform this particular job, look at the difference it's making in the world, right? You are making a difference and you're part of a bigger story. Always tie their performance to that bigger purpose and story. Those are the two things that I would say will dramatically uh, improve engagement, and most importantly, enhance engagement. We need connection. And those are some of the most powerful ways and easiest ways to get it. And those are the two takeaways I'd certainly leave.
Well, let's, you and I particularly, stay very well connected moving past here. We are so thankful that you broke time away. Brand new job, first week on the job. You broke away to be with us and share what you are learning and continuing to learn about business continuity planning, employee engagement, how to motivate folks around purpose, make sure they know they're cared for, and they have a roadmap to get to where the company and the stakeholders are headed. Thank you, Ken. Great job today. Thank you.
My pleasure, Bo. I've enjoyed the time, and thanks for having me today.
All right. Without further ado, our next Human Capital Matters series, September the 17th. Please mark it on your calendar, 2 p.m. Eastern. Mr. Chris Chung. He's the CEO of the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. Chris and I have known each other for a lot of years. He has a very responsible role, and you think about a responsible role in excellent economic times, which was kind of at least the last 8 years. And I'm anxious to see what Chris is up to in the last 6 months with the disruptions of business and economic development. He's going to be with us, and we'll be sharing what's going on with the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, Mr. Chris Chung. We will thank, again, each of the audience members. We hope to have this version out tomorrow, late afternoon on YouTube. Thank everyone for joining us. It's been great to be with you.